Awesome. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep, we can see it.
Awesome. So thank you so much for attending this event. We were going to talk about refining your product skills with Clement today. And there are lots of amazing things. I'm super excited about the event, especially because some of the skills that he talks about in the book, some of the skills he's going to talk about today, I genuinely need to know more about them for my job tomorrow. So this event is something I'm eagerly looking forward for. But before we start with Clement, I just want to formally welcome everybody who's here with us today. APM Club is back again. We took a pause from last year to realign some of the priorities, some to understand more as PMs do, right? We want to make sure we are serving you better. So we are back again now. And just to give a recap, our mission is to empower every product manager to accelerate their career through engaging community programs that build strong relationships and keep your skills top notch. Our vision for the future, the future that we dream about, is to democratize PM skill learning, relationship building, and personal branding by learning from and promoting each other with minimum time commitment and maximum impact. And the reason why we care about our mission and our vision so much is because as a product manager, you, me, all of us have very limited time. And there are so many high expectations from stakeholders, customers, leadership team members, product team members, right? For us to keep our industry knowledge up to date and all the skills that Clement will also talk about. So we're supposed to keep our knowledge up to date. We're supposed to have a strong network and have an amazing personal brand. And it's a lot to do for one single person. That's why we want to do it together. Maybe it's not as much if we do it all together as a community. APM Club cares about your limited time and the big impact you want to make with it. We are here to help you be the best version of a PM you can be with minimum time commitment and maximum impact. You'll hear a lot of that from us. Quick recap of what we did last year. We learned a lot. We had these more than 4,000 followers. We did 10 skill labs, 24 meetups, 15 PM speakers. And, we really hope to meet you this year in 2021. And we've grown to 6,000 followers on our LinkedIn page. And we cannot be more grateful to all our members, to all our followers, to our mentors and speakers like Clement, and super grateful for the journey that we've been on together with all of you. What to expect from 2021 with APM Club is there are a lot of new program launches that will hit your pain points better. We did the research, we did our homework, and we're really excited to launch those new programs. Just like PMs do, we will have pilot launches. Some of you will receive invites for the programs that we're launching. We want to make sure that we are building impact and we're not making it generally available before it needs to be. So if you're excited and you want to be a part of our pilot programs, please reach out to me or Nikita Malia. We're going to have more personal branding offerings to promote you better because we really believe in you and we love all of you. And we're going to have more closely knit community, closer friendships with the programs that we're launching. And the one thing that I'm super excited about, and all of us at APM Club, is hopefully we have a lot of fun trips and meetups because we all want to meet you. And hopefully the world gets less pandemic-y very soon. And one of the questions we receive a lot from all of you is how to join the club. For LinkedIn and YouTube, it's open to all. We post 80 to 90% of what we offer to our Slack members, to our closely knit community. So please join, please follow, and let us know how can we serve you better. For Slack, we are going for 2021. As of now, it's going to be leadership team referral only. Please talk to a leadership team member if you want to be a part of the team, the community. Honestly, to be extremely transparent and honest, we are only a few leadership team members, and there's a lot of applications and people who want to join, and we're still figuring out how to make a sustainable model. And we're just, for now, it's going to be referral only, but I'm happy to hear more ideas if you guys have any. This is our leadership team team for 2021. Hi, I'm Arunima, and I want all of us, all the leaders who are present on the call, to quickly talk about one thing that anyone can reach out to you about, one fun thing that you love talking about. So for me, I love talking about very quick recipes, like literally 5-minute recipes that are healthy and yummy. So if you have any of those tips, please, please, please reach out to me, and I would love to talk about that. Madeline or anyone. Nikita, Mara.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I am Nikita. I'll switch on my video super quickly. Super excited to be here. Thank you, Arunima, for introducing me. And so I am joining as a software PM at Tesla 2 weeks from now. So excited for my first job as a PM. And one fun thing about that I like to talk about is writing. I have like 3 blogs of my own. I'm trying to, build it up organically. So if you have anything on that front, definitely reach out. Yeah. And thank you all for joining today. I hope you have an amazing session, and thank you, Clement, for hosting. Thank you.
Madeline, Arsh, go for it.
Hello, my name is Arsh. I am a senior at Berkeley studying data science and business. I'm also an incoming product manager at Palo Alto Networks. Let's see, one or two things are like video games and reading about like history, psychology, economics. So I read a bunch of, and like, I don't know, I'm looking at my like book library right now, and I'm trying to like summarize it, but I don't really have a summary. But yeah, I think that's about as good as I can do. So yeah, any of those things are good for me.
Woohoo! Mara. Mara is my roommate too, by the way. So you're gonna hear her twice probably.
Yeah, I'm literally in the other room right now. Hi everyone, so I'm Mara. I'm a PM at Microsoft right now, and I lead the PM Skills Lab within APMC. I'm very passionate about ballroom dancing, which usually is very unusual in all the groups that I talk about it. But if you have any dance-related questions, I'm the person to go to. And yeah, any ideas about PM Skills Lab, any suggestions of speakers we should invite or skills you'd like to learn, I'd love to learn more from you. And we'll make sure to create a great learning experience for all of you in this upcoming year. Thank you.
Awesome. Do we have Madeline? I think Madeline, Victoria, and Adi are stuck at work, like all of us usually are. So if you guys are not on the call, let's start the event, and I'd like to introduce Clement. So guys, we all know Clement. A lot of us have read PMHQ. We know a lot about him. He's going to talk more about, his journey. But through this slide and through this introduction, I would like to introduce Clement from how APM Club members would describe him. So Clement is our leadership team mentor. He's one of the instrumental people who made APM Club as strategic and successful in the ways that we are successful. He is one person who always asks the right questions somehow and always knows the questions to ask for us to think deeper about our problems. So this guy is a thought-provoking writer. If you haven't already, check out PMHQ. The content that he shares genuinely has helped me so many times in my day-to-day product management job, and a lot of my friends as well. So I define him as a thought-provoking writer. And of course, that goes if you're a thought-provoking writer in the PM space, you gotta be an exemplary PM mentor. And that's what he is personally to me and a lot of leadership team members. The way he's able to analyze situations at work, and the many not so happy lessons and happy lessons that you learn in your job, and the way he's able to answer questions in a very constructed way is genuinely very amazing. And the last thing is, he's a very pragmatic and strategic visionary. Somehow he has this balance of being very pragmatic and realistic about the situations and having a very pragmatic approach, but also having the vision for future, like not just what realism is today, but also how it would relate to in the future. So in the Q&A session, please take an advantage of having Clement with us, ask questions, and you'll see how Clement is able to literally get into your brain and make everything more structured and amazing. So I'm gonna clap because it's gonna be weird in the Zoom call, but put your hands together for Clement. Hi, Clement. Share
Hi.
away.
Thanks so much. Wow, that is quite the high standard. Again, really appreciate everyone being here today. I realize that it is late. Oh, sorry, heads up. I don't have participant sharing, so if someone could let me share.
I just gave it to you.
There we go, perfect. Cool, can everyone see my screen here?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Again, I realize that it is super late, right? And it's the back half of the week. Really appreciate you all, sacrificing and investing the time to learn more. So I'm going to do my best to meet those high standards. We'll see how I do. But yeah, so first off, just to recap what you can expect for this session, I'll give a quick intro about who I am, kind of how I wound up in product management. Then I'm going to be talking a little bit more about refining your product skills. So it's this book that I published, and basically just go through a quick summary of it, basically trying to condense an entire book into 30 minutes. We'll find out how successful I am. Really with the hope of empowering you to continue to grow your careers, right? So that's really the objective for today. So again, really excited to be here and appreciate the time. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. So first off, I graduated from Berkeley, double major in business and biology, took a very weird path into product management. I actually did not expect to become a product manager. I never wanted to be a PM. I just kind of became one on accident. Started as a consultant, then became a data analyst, and then became a product manager. So I've looked at a bunch of PM resumes, interviewed a bunch of PMs. I also write a bunch about product management. So for the Q&A session, feel free to ask me any and all questions about product. I'm always more than happy to tackle them. So again, I've written a handful of books. Feel free to refer to them whenever you want. Basically, the way that I think about the 3 books that I've written is for breaking into product management, again, not necessarily things that folks here need as your APMs, but kind of what is the way to think about product management from the hiring manager's perspective, right? What are the pains that we're trying to solve as product managers, and how do we demonstrate that we have the right value proposition to solve that pain, right? So kind of reverse engineering how we can break into product management positions. Still helpful as it covers a bunch of different PM interview questions in case you are looking to move to other organizations, but there's that. Excellent execution as a product manager is more about kind of the day-to-day skills. And then refining your product skills, we're about to get into more on this call. So why I wrote it really was meant to try to solve my own pain. So back when I started as a product manager, I did not know anything, right? I was a management consultant. I didn't know the first thing about code, right? Like I only knew my data analytics. I didn't know how to work with engineers. I didn't know how to work with designers. Very overwhelming, right? And one of the things that's really scary, as Arunima said, right, is we need to know basically everything about everything, right? Like we need to be good at marketing, but also analytics, but also sales, but also Scrum, but also engineering. There's a lot, right? And so how are you supposed to do all of this? For me, I think what I really struggled with when I was first starting in my career was I didn't really have another set of perspectives. I didn't really have a really great support network. And so that's why I've invested all of this time into growing Product Manager HQ, into helping to grow APMC, because I really want to make sure that there are fewer folks like me back then where I was completely lost and I had no idea what I was doing, right? And so really what the goal of this particular book is meant to be is it's really supposed to be a companion, something that you're able to visit over and over again in your career, basically to give you another set of perspectives, right? If you're struggling through something right now, give you another set of lenses to look at it so that you're not necessarily kind of blocked. and also to give you a heads up of what's coming ahead, right? Because I think one of the things that's very valuable in product management is being able to see around corners, right? If there's something challenging coming up ahead, by drawing on someone else's experiences, that means that you don't have to make those mistakes yourself. You can kind of learn from the mistakes of someone else and use that to accelerate your impact and your progress, right? So kind of that is why I wrote it. But one of the things that I did on purpose when writing this book was I really only focused on 4 key skills, right? Because the thing is, again, we could try to boil the ocean. We could try to attack every single possible skill. But the thing is, at some point, that just doesn't scale very well, right? The thing is, while there are almost infinite skills out there, there are really only a couple few that are what I'd like to call keystone skills, ones that are really multipliers, where if you get them right, you really unlock a lot of additional value across your other skills, right? And kind of those are the ones that should really matter to you as a product manager, because we all have limited time, right? And so it's really important that we find what is the highest return on investment skill, right? I think one of the traps that I regularly hear is, hey, as a product manager, I should be more technical. And it's like, yes, you could be more technical if we all had infinite time and we could learn all of the engineering languages that we could. But to be honest, to be more technical, right, like that is a lot of time investment to be able to have that technical knowledge, right? Like there are higher leverage things that we can be learning and applying day to day on the job that doesn't necessarily require us to learn how to code for the first time, right? And so what I really wanted to focus on were kind of these 4 key skills that really empower you to drive additional impact through your existing skill set. First, working with stakeholders. Second, discovery and marketing. Third, metrics and analytics. And fourth, professional development, right? And so in terms of talking through these 4, really the way that I think about working with stakeholders is it's all about gaining that empathy. We're going to dive into that in just a little bit, where by really understanding the pain points of other people, you're better able to align them, and that way drive synergistic value kind of across all of the different activities that you're all doing, right? And so that can be incredibly important because, again, you want everyone to be tackling the same thing all together so that way you're driving the maximum impact, right? So kind of working with stakeholders is one of the key multiplier skills, which is why I wanted to focus on that. In terms of discovery and marketing, the reason why I want to focus there is because you can have a really amazing product, but the thing is, if it doesn't solve someone's pain, or if people don't know that it exists, or if people don't understand how it applies to them, it's as if the product never existed, right? And so if you want to drive that impact, you really need to go and understand, well, who am I solving the pain for, right? Kind of how do I make sure that they know that my product exists, right? So kind of that's why I want to focus there on discovery and marketing. In terms of metrics and analytics, it's all about understanding what is the truth of the world out there, right? Kind of how can we understand what is in our landscape of our product so that we know kind of which levers to pull to continue to drive that positive impact in the world through our product. And the final piece is professional development, which I think is something that we don't necessarily cover enough as product managers. I think one of the challenges is because the product management industry is still so new, we're a little bit thrown to the wolves, right? Kind of we're asked to grow our careers ourselves, and there's not really a super clear framework on how we can continue to drive that impact. And so I wanted to provide a little bit of a roadmap, a framework, so that kind of we all can continue to grow together. So kind of that's why I focused on these 4. Of course, there are many, many, many more, right? Like this is not meant to be a comprehensive book. It's meant to kind of target the areas that I see a lot of entry-level PMs, associate PMs really trip on and try to help unblock all of you in terms of sharing my own insights and my own mistakes and failures, so that way you don't have to run into them face first. And so in terms of the book, and so the way that this presentation is structured, basically the book is broken up into kind of those 4 key skills. I'm not going to talk through every single chapter because we don't have the time for that. But basically wanted to give you a quick preview of kind of what you can expect to see from each of the parts, as well as basically talk through kind of what is the core lesson to be learning from each part of the book, right? So of course, in terms of working with stakeholders, right? Of course, you're going to be working with engineers, QAs, designers, right? You're going to be working with sales. You're going to be working with customer support. Of course, you're going to be working with your executive team, right? But what kind of ties all of these pieces together? It's really empathy, right? The thing is, we as product managers, we are in a really unique role within the organization because we work as servant leaders. And what I mean by that is we really need to focus on understanding what are other people's goals, kind of what are the pain points that they're facing, because it's our job to bring them up to kind of the highest level of performance that they can have, right? Kind of we need to help these people level up across the organization so that they can deliver outside impact on our behalf, right? And of course, we need to really understand and bring those needs into the way that we work, into the way that we prioritize our time. And so in terms of kind of key things that you'll be learning kind of as you go through each of the individual chapters, really the core focuses are on kind of the 3 points below, right? Part one is, well, how exactly do each of these different roles work, right? And why do they actually work that way? I think one of the things that we don't regularly get to do a lot as product managers is because we're so busy trying to move the product forward, we don't necessarily get a lot of time to understand, oh, that's why designers are doing things this way, right? Or like, oh, like that's what the marketing team wanted to do, right? So it's more about taking the time to understand why is each department set up the way that they are, kind of what are each set of people's goals, so that way we can internalize them and help them do what they need to do so that they can help us do what we need to do, right? So one of the things that I focus on throughout the book is why are people working the way that they're working? What are their objectives and how do we help them move towards those objectives, right? And kind of that leads into the second piece of, well, what are their goals, right? Just because people work in a particular way doesn't always mean that that way of working is the most effective. And so one of the things that is really powerful as product managers that we need to remember is we don't just build products, right? Like, of course we build products and of course we ship products and deliver them, but we also deliver processes. Like we are building the product creation engine within our company. And so we are creating a product culture. We are creating a set of product processes that go across the organization. And so for us to be able to provide that really unbiased third-party perspective to help other stakeholders perform more effectively, more efficiently, we really need to understand what their goals are so that way we can find out, okay, well, how do we help them move towards that? And of course, on the flip side, well, why are people struggling and how can we intervene, right? I think one of the things that we don't remember enough, right, is the way that we work sometimes creates friction for our stakeholders, right? So sometimes, in terms of the way that we might be writing a product spec, or that we're writing release notes, or that we're trying to come up with estimates, or that we're trying to create a roadmap, that sometimes creates downstream pains that we know nothing about, right? And so how do we take that time to understand, well, where are we causing this downstream pain and how can we eliminate that pain or at least mitigate it so that way we can continue to empower our stakeholders to perform at the highest level so that way we are all delivering the best possible product. Right? So kind of that is the entire section on working with stakeholders, which again is a bunch of chapters, I know, but I really want to take the time to dive into kind of each one of the different core functions so that way kind of you have that visibility into, okay, why are people doing things this way? What is it that they really care about? And how can we subtly shift the way that we are doing our work so that way they can move a lot faster, a lot harder, and that way like they can work together with us, right? So kind of that is that first section. In terms of the second section, discovery and marketing, right? So I cover things such as value propositions, right? Kind of how do you actually make sure that your value proposition makes sense and works? And then once you have that, actually executing against it. Sometimes people create value propositions, but then don't actually use them, which is always a shame. As well as how do you handle people's objections, right? So when you are working with customers, they will very regularly say, hey, I don't like this part of the product, or like, hey, I need this other set of features, or hey, this isn't going fast enough, right? So how do you actually handle all of that? And see it not from the lens of, oh my gosh, these people are such a headache to deal with, but really, oh my gosh, this is such a great gift of feedback. How can I continue to help them succeed as they're bringing me these objections, right? Because when people object, they're actually really bought into your product. They really want the product to do something for them. They are really engaged. And so you really want to understand where they're coming from and how can you help them through that, right? As well as, of course, making sure that you know how to interview users so that you really understand what are people's pains, as well as, why do people pick different products, right? Why do people move away from their existing processes or existing products to select yours? Why might they drop yours and pick someone else's, right? By us really understanding kind of why do people make the decisions that they make and how do we fit our product into that mental model, we're really able to drive a lot of incremental impact, right? And so the thing is, I have to reiterate this over and over again, right? If you want your product to win, you have to position it correctly. Because the thing is, one of the things that we like to pretend exists in the world is universally good products, right? We're like, oh my gosh, like this product is so amazing and like it does everything. And the truth is no such thing exists, right? The thing is, there are only products that fit their markets really well. There's no such thing as a universally good product, right? So as an example, in the United States, we all use our credit cards a bunch, right? And so we kind of just assume that credit cards are really fantastic products because we use them a bunch, right? Like they're top of mind. We use them every time when we shop, right? We have like deep engagement with them. But guess what? They don't use them in China, right? And so in different geographies, credit cards don't work, right? Similarly, Snapchat. We all love Snapchat, right? But grandparents don't use Snapchat, right? And so again, it's like, when we think about products, there's no such thing as a universally good product in a vacuum. It's all about how does this product actually fit its market? And so it's all about trying to find out, okay, well, what market am I trying to go after? And in that market, how are those customers thinking? What are the decisions that they're making? What is their mental model? So that way you can incorporate that into how you build your product, how you distribute your product, so that way they see the value of what it is that you're building, right? I think one of the things that, the old way of thinking was, oh, if you build it, they will come, right? If you build a better mousetrap, other people will use your product. And the reality is that's not the case, because the thing is, products are distributed so easily today, right? Kind of you can distribute infinite copies for free. It's very easy to get out new releases, right? It's very easy to reach anyone now over the internet. And so the thing is, you have infinite competition, right? Like everyone is trying to fight for the same slice of attention. And so that means that you have to really demonstrate your fit to your customers so that way they pay attention to you, right? So kind of that's why I focus a lot of time on how do we make sure that we position our product correctly by taking a lot of the foundational steps to first understand, okay, well, what market are we going after, right? And in that market, why are people making the decisions that they're making, so that we can take that to account and build products for them. So kind of that's the second section of the book. In terms of the third section, in terms of metrics and analytics, right? Of course, I cover lots of different ways in which you can calculate stuff, right? So of course, there's the NPS score, right? There's conversion, retention, bounce, etc. But I also cover a lot of what one might consider a bit more qualitative metrics and analytics, right? So how do you actually pick the right metrics? And the thing is, this might be surprising to everyone, but one of the things that I've learned across my product career is that as you get better and better at understanding the way that your product works, it's a lot less about hard skills and a lot more about soft skills. And so the thing is, you can do a lot of very fancy analytics on your data set, right? Kind of you can do all sorts of different fancy cuts. But the thing is, tools are just that. They're tools, right? Metrics and analytics, they're simply proxies of truth. And what we really want to do as product managers is we want to understand, why do people behave the way that they are, right? So first, what is their behavior, right? Kind of who is behaving in what way, and then why. And the thing is, if we misuse a metric, if we misuse a tool, we're not going to get anywhere, right? So the thing is, there's that saying, right, where it's like, if all you have is a hammer, everything else looks like a nail, right? And so if you keep overusing a tool, it will stop working, right? So as an example, one of the things that we typically think of as the holy grail in product management is A/B testing, right? Oh, of course, if you do A/B testing, test versus control, you have an experiment that does better, then you can lock in those results, spread it across your entire customer base, and you can keep growing the metric. But the problem with A/B tests is that kind of you wind up tackling local optima, right? So basically you can only get your product to get up to like so much more in terms of optimization, whereas you might actually find a global maximum somewhere else by not doing A/B testing, but by doing something very radical, right? And so how do you make that trade-off? It's not something that you can get just from your data set. That's something that requires a lot of soft skills, right? And so kind of within the section of the book, even though I talk about, hey, how do you pick metrics? How do you use these metrics? How do you interpret these metrics? A lot of it is more about understanding the human side of each of those metrics, right? So as an example, one of the things that we typically think about as bad is bounce rate, right? So, oh my gosh, someone came onto my page or someone came onto my product and then they left without doing anything. That feels pretty bad, right? But if you actually dig deeper into understanding people's behavior, sometimes bounce is not bad. And so bounce, as an example, is defined as, hey, someone comes onto the page, they take no action outside of read the page, and then they leave. And like, yes, for many products, that's bad. But as an example, for a blog, that's sometimes really good, right? When I write an article on, hey, how do you optimize your LinkedIn profile as a product manager? I want to see you bounce. Because if I saw that you had to click through a bunch of different links, you might be lost. I might not have solved your pain, right? And so what I really want to see is I really want to see that you read the entire thing through and then you bounce. I want a high bounce rate, right? And so the thing is, many times when we think, oh no, this metric is bad, or oh wow, this metric is good, the thing is, we've forgotten that there are humans on the other side of our product. And so it's all about how do we think about the human side of our product as we work through these metrics and analytics as tools to help us better understand the world so that we can continue to create positive human impact through our products, right? So definitely do not fall for the trap of analytical rigor, right? Of course, we can make things statistically significant, et cetera, et cetera. It's all about how do we understand the people that are on the other side of our products and make their lives actually better. And kind of the last part here, of course, is professional development. And so again, this is a really critical skill because you are the best product in your own toolkit, right? Like you are the one big factor that makes or breaks your career, right? The thing is, yes, of course, we will find really great organizations, we will find really great, we'll find really great managers, et cetera, but the one factor that's going to determine whether you succeed as a product manager or not is how much you drive your own career, right? And so what I want to do is I want to empower everyone to have that skill set, have that toolkit in front of them so that they don't feel lost. Because when I was going through it, I was like, I don't know what to learn, right? Like, I don't know what to do next. All I know is that I'm trying to ship this product and I have no idea what to do next, right? So kind of how can we start thinking forward 2 years, 5 years, 10 years into the future and understand all the paths that are available so that way we can start to take that more proactive step, right? So I cover, hey, when you join a new organization, how do you succeed in the first 90 days? How do you establish credibility and make sure that you're doing great, right? What are the different career paths that are available to product managers, right? It's not just necessarily you become VP of product. There are so many other things that we can do, right? How do you drive that roadmap for yourself once you decide what you want to do? As well as how do you find a mentor? How do you give back? How do you be a successful mentor? And finally, of course, how do you actually manage other product managers? What are the pains that other people face so that you can level them up? And so the core thing to remember, and the kind of the core theme that I hit on in this part of the book, is all about ensuring that you own your own career, right? The really amazing thing about product management is that it's not just a job, it's a mindset, right? Product management means that you can always infinitely improve, right? We are products and we can have our own roadmaps, right? And so when we treat ourselves as products, it means that we can be a lot more thoughtful in terms of how we want to grow and develop our careers, right? So we can say, hey, as a product, right, there is some market that I'm attacking, right? Maybe I'm really great at working with nonprofits. Maybe I'm really great at working with startups. Maybe I'm great with working with really large organizations, right? What is the market that I'm going after as a product manager, as an associate product manager, right? And once I understand that market, which one I want to go after, okay, well, within that market, of course, there are a bunch of different pains. Which are the pains that I'm really good at tackling, right? So as an example, within even something as broad as, let's say, B2B fintech product management, right? Sounds a little niche, right? Like B2B fintech product management sounds a little bit niche, but you can actually divvy that up into lots of different sub-pains, right? Like, oh, well, there are mobile apps within B2B fintech, right? There are web apps, there are APIs, right? There are all these different things that you could do. And so there are all these different pains that exist within any market niche, kind of no matter how thinly you slice it, right? So kind of what are the pains that I think I've got the best shot at solving within that market? And then once I know these pains, okay, great. I have some set of skills, right? I already have a value proposition. What is the roadmap that I want to take? What are the things that I want to grow proactively so that way I can address that even better, right? So basically, when we want to enter a new market, when we want to attack a new market, when we want to switch to a new employer, or when we want to be promoted within our own organization, right? That is some market with some pains. And so if we don't demonstrate that we solve those pains, they won't, quote unquote, hire us for that particular solution, right? Like they're not going to see us as their best solve. They're going to find a different product, a different alternative that better solves the pain, right? So we really need to understand what is the market that we're going after, what are the pains, and then how do we grow ourselves to meet those pains. And of course, from there, once we have continued to sink into the market that we really want to dig our teeth into, right? From there, how do we scale our impact, right? Kind of how can we help other people grow, whether those are the product managers that you're managing or kind of all the different stakeholders that you're coordinating on a day-to-day basis. And so again, kind of that's what the book covers. The thing is, there are a lot of skills that you need to cover as a PM, right? And like that is just something that we all face, right? I acknowledge that it is really difficult, but there are a couple of really critical skills that you can focus on that will really help to multiply your impact, right? And so I think kind of the key 4 that you want to look at, and the thing is, you don't have to get all of them, right? You just need to get at least one, because that will then help you grow all of your other skills, right? So again, when you see this list, don't be like, oh my God, Clement, you're giving me so much homework. I need to go figure out how to do all of this. No. Just this is a set that you get to choose from, right? So which one of these do you want to start from as you look at how can I multiply my product impact, right? So instead of, oh, I'm going to learn one skill as you do it incrementally, let's figure out how to do it multiplicatively, right? Kind of how can we learn the skills that are going to really multiply our impact? So again, you don't have to know all 4 of these at once. You can pick and choose, right? And so I say that kind of one of them is to be empathetic, right? When you really understand who am I working with and what are the pains that they're trying to tackle, what are the ways in which they're working, you can drive a lot more impact, right? So one of the key levers that you can pull is to be a lot more empathetic, to really understand not just who is my customer, but who are my teammates? Who is my company? How can I serve them, right? Another lever that we get to pull is try to understand, okay, well, what is the market, right? Kind of who are the customers in this market and how do they make decisions? Because if we can understand how they make decisions, we can better position our product, and then they're actually much more likely to adopt it, right? Kind of, we don't have to resort to growth hacking. We don't have to resort to A/B experimentation. We know exactly what the problem is. And so we can deliver solutions that solve for that need, right? So that's another lever that we get to pull. A third lever that we get to pull, right, is not just, oh, I'm going to do 100 analyses, then 1,000 analyses, then like 10,000 analyses, right? Like, if we focus on what is the human side of the truth, right? Why are people behaving the way that they are, right? Like, have I actually selected the right metric, the right proxy, the right cut of data to solve my question, right? That will move you miles, right? So instead of you having to try to cut the same analysis 15 different times, trust me, I've done that before. It's really painful, right? Asking the softer skill question of, okay, well, what problem am I trying to solve? What am I trying to learn, right? And from there, then selecting the right skills, the right toolkit to really break that down, right? So seeking the human truth is yet another lever that we can pull. And finally, when we take ownership of our own careers, when we accept that we are our greatest products, right? It's not the product that we're running on the job, it's us. We are our greatest products, and that we own our roadmaps, you will go much farther, because that means that you are now controlling how you are developing, so that way you can go after markets that you are most passionate about. So again, kind of that is what the book is meant to cover. Hopefully I've been able to boil down a couple of the core themes here so that you have something tangible to take away with you. Again, kind of as Arunima said, right, like these are skills that are super valuable, like not just for her tomorrow. I mean, they were valuable for me today, and I'm gonna need to use all of these again tomorrow, right? So I'm really excited to have had the chance to talk about these with all of you. More than happy to answer any questions that y'all have on your mind.
Yeah, hi, Clement. I'm Shub. Just to quickly intro myself, I'm an associate product manager at Salesforce. I found this presentation pretty insightful, especially, from my vantage point. What I'm super interested in is that growing the career aspect. Once you're in, how you grow that career aspect. I think there's a dearth of literature about once you're in, what do you do next? So I found that last segment really insightful. I'm curious, could you give us an example or how you are treating your own career as a product and how you're thinking about it? Would love to get your insight.
Yeah, for sure. That's a really good question. So in terms of treating yourself as a product and growing your career, right? I think first, one of the things that is helpful is actually to talk with your hiring manager or the person who's managing you and treat them as a customer, right? Like ask them, hey, what is it that you are trying to get done, right? So instead of it being employer-employee, it's customer product, right? Like, what are the pains that you're struggling with? What are the things that give you the most headaches, right? Why do you stay up at night? What are the things that you have the biggest headaches about, right? And try to understand the world from your manager's point of view, right? I think one of the things that we do a lot as product managers is kind of, we are very centered around all the things that we control from our own perspective. And we forget that, well, our managers have a much harder time, right? Like they're trying to manage all managers, and if something falls through, they got to step in and like deal with it, right? And so our managers have a bunch of things that they're worried about, right? And so how do we understand what they're concerned about and then demonstrate to them that we can step up and resolve that pain from them, right? So a real example, and this is going to sound insane, but when I was an associate product manager, one of the things that my executives really struggled with was with documenting decisions, right? Which sounds a little bit weird, but was true. Like we were like, what, a 50-person startup. And one of the things that kept coming up meeting after meeting is, what did we say last meeting? Or like, what is it that we were supposed to do again? Or like, how are we supposed to? And so one of the things that I found out is actually my entire management team has a challenge in terms of being able to drive internal accountability, right? How can I deliver the solution to them, right? And I thought, okay, well, a quote unquote cheap, easy way is to take notes, right? Like in every meeting that I'm gonna be in, I'm gonna take notes. I'm gonna say what decisions we made, who made the decisions, what are the next steps, who's doing them, when are they due, right? Like pretty basic note taking. But because my notes then drove so much more accountability and transparency within the executive team, they're like, wow, it's really valuable to have Clement here. Why don't we invite him to a bunch of meetings? So a bunch of meetings that like I had no business being in, they invited me because I was a really great note taker. And so I got a bunch more business context that in theory, I shouldn't have had as an associate product manager, because they really relied on my ability to drive outcomes from the executive team, right? Like I found a pain, people weren't documenting, right? And so I stepped up and I did it myself. And they're like, great, we need Clement in all these different meetings. And from there, I was then able to get all this business context and be able to drive a lot of higher level product strategy, right? So it wasn't just necessarily, okay, well, here are my own products, right? But hey, I know that last week we were talking about this problem, and it seems like if we did this, we can do that. And they were like, Clement, strategic, right? It's like, no, I just documented and like read my notes, right? But because of that, they started trusting me with more and more. They gave me more and more products to manage, to the point where I became a group product manager, right? Like I owned like, how many? I think I probably was managing 30 people at one time, like within basically what, 10 months, because I started taking notes, right? Like that is a pretty ridiculous skill, right? Like we all know how to take notes as ex-students, right? But that was a pain that people had, right? And so one of the things that's very valuable is, what is the pain that my manager is having? Because my manager is my customer, right? Like they hired me to take a headache away from them. Did they get new headaches? Can I take those headaches away from them, right? So one of the things that came up while I was a product, and so before, so that organization I was talking about, that was Movoto. So that's where I stepped up, took notes, became a group product manager. At Blend, one of the things that happened was, I was owning some product, and we found out that, hey, there's this other product that currently needs intervention at Blend, and we can't find the right person for it. And I looked at it and I was like, I have a lot of these skill sets, like I can do this, right? Like I can meet all of these different needs, and I can manage that one and this one right now, right? So I told my manager, I can take that one, right? Like I don't feel bad about taking on that additional set of responsibilities, because that fits me pretty well, right? And they let me have it. And I was able to grow it a bunch, right? Like I was able to grow it by millions and millions of dollars. And I was only able to do that because I identified that my managers were having challenges in trying to drive another product successfully. And they were like, like, do we like reassign this to someone else? Do we hire another PM to do it? Do we turn off the product entirely? Like, what do we do? And I said, I'll just take it, right? And so it's all about going above and beyond to understand that our managers are not kind of authority figures, right? Of course they are, but they're also human beings. They also have their own headaches, right? And we are serving them as our customers, right? When we think of our managers as customers and we dig into what are the pains that they have, we can then really take actionable next steps to take those pains away from them, in which case they trust us even more as kind of the solution to tackle whatever it is that they've got upcoming, right? And so I think that is really kind of one of the meta product mindsets, right? Like if we treat our own managers as customers and we do the user research needed to yield their pains, we can be much more effective in tackling those needs rather than kind of doing the traditional career progression style. So one of the things that like we all learn, which is unfortunately a little bit of a myth, is like, hey, there's a rubric, right? If you meet all these things on the rubric, you will get promoted. And it's like, yeah, that's great as like a framework, but the thing that actually matters to your manager is, did you make their life easier? Right? Like if you made their life easier, they're more than happy to give you more stuff to do, right? And if you did not make their life easier, if you're making their life harder, it doesn't matter how well you're doing on the rubric, they don't want to move you forward, right? And so it's all about, what are the pains that my manager is having? What are the pains that my company, my hiring organization has? Because they are my customer, right? If I can understand who they are as a customer, I can drive outsized wins that no one else has taken the time to actually go do, right? And so again, that all sounds really basic as soon as I say it, right? It's like, this is just basic empathy and user interviews, right? Like there's nothing insightful here. But the thing is, we just forget to apply it to our own like organizations, right? So that's the insight, right? So when we take the step to go above and beyond and be empathetic to our own colleagues and our own hiring managers, that's when we actually yield a lot more of that impact outside of our kind of traditional skill set.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Clement. There's one very popular anonymous question on our Slido, which says, what do you recommend during the first month of a PM's career, and if it's your first APM job? I know you have this 90-day checklist, but let's trim it down to 30 days.
Sure.
What do you do in the first 30 days?
So in terms of the first 30 days, so if you don't mind, I'm actually going to read from this book because it's a little easier than for me to try to pull that out of my head. So just 1 second. So in terms of how you want to wrap up, right? So again, like I'm literally reading this, right? Like this has the first 4 weeks in terms of what you're supposed to do. So I'm actually going to read from this and then I'll summarize that in just a second. So really the core thing that you want to do is you really want to gain that initial context, right? So again, product managers, we don't deliver impact ourselves. Like we deliver impact through other people, right? So that first week should be all about doing basic information gathering of like establishing relationships with stakeholders, right? Like we should be talking to our engineers, our designers, our managers, right? Like we should be understanding who on the operations team is running the product, sales, marketing, et cetera, right? Like let's take the time to understand who are all of the people that we're going to be working with and what are their pains? What are their goals, right? How can I make their lives easier by being the product manager that they're looking for? Right? So kind of week one should be all about information gathering and establishing those relationships with those stakeholders, right? And the other thing that you really want to do during week one is everyone's going to give you a pass because you are new to the organization and sometimes you're just new to the role, right? So you get to ask some really dumb questions, right? Like there are no such things as dumb questions in your first week. And so you should actually be really aggressive in asking a bunch of questions. Like you should feel like you're being annoying and you should just ask a bunch of questions. Because the thing is, here's the flip side. If you don't ask those questions and you don't figure it out in that first week, every week that passes that you still don't know that information, you're slowing down the entire team, right? And so you owe it to your team to answer those questions for yourself immediately. Of course, the other thing is when you get the answers, you should document them as a good product manager because that way other people won't run into that question. But that's really all about week one, right? So week one is all about, getting to understand who's who within the organization, what is it that they're doing, why are they doing that, how do you fit in, right? As well as asking a bunch of questions, joining sprint stand-ups, et cetera, right? And so you shouldn't expect to be driving anything in week one. You should really be focusing on gathering as much information as you can, right? Because the thing is, if you make random wild moves in week one, right, it's pretty clear that you don't understand the product enough. And so people are going to be less likely to trust you, right? So you really want to take the time to build up that trust. And the only way to do that is to build up your internal knowledge by really investing heavily in week one, right? And then kind of as you go into week two, you're going to, of course, continue doing what you were doing before, right? Still don't feel like you need to start making any product decisions. But now what you want to do is instead of just talking to people, now what you want to do is you want to start interacting with existing documents and decisions, right? And so basically, the thing that you want to do is, you want to go check out any like tech specs that were in the past, right? Like you want to check out customer interview notes, presentations to the executive team, et cetera. Not necessarily like actually like read all of them, but just index them all, right? Like just like, where would I go get this information if I needed it? So that way I can get back to that ASAP, right? So, week two is much more like an indexing exercise. Okay, I generally know the landscape and now I just need to know where I need to go if I need additional information, right? And then from there, you should start taking the initiative to start documenting more things. So start documenting how our customers onboarding onto your product, document how users are moving through the product, right? Like play with the product yourself, use your fresh eyes to look at it. And then basically in week three, what you want to do is you want to really understand like where's the current sprint at, like why do people prioritize the things that they prioritize, and basically just make sure that you're setting yourself up so that you can hit the ground running in week four, right? So basically you want to understand how are people making decisions right now, so that way you can replicate that decision making, not because you want to necessarily be a clone, but like you want to just carry over the momentum from before as you develop the stance, develop the perspective that you need to start driving independent product decisions yourself, right? And then basically in the final week of your first month on the job, right, you'll want to dive into your backlog and just understand, why do people prioritize the things that they prioritize? Why do people drop the things that they dropped? And just really work alongside your engineering lead to start doing estimates, right? Like that will really help you to understand, okay, well, this product works in this way, and like this kind of thing is about this complex, like this is about a large, this is about a small, right? Like what are the things that are really easy to work with? What are the things that are really hard to work with? And basically, by the end of that very first month, what you should have is you should have a clear understanding of how does my product work, because you've played with it, who are all the people that I'm working with, because you talked to them, where are all the documents, because you index them, and as well as a sense of, okay, how big or small are each of these pieces, so that in month two, I start making decisions, right? Like now, what is it that I'm prioritizing within the sprint, right? Like what is it that we're going to tackle next? How can I start drawing out a roadmap, start doing user research, start doing industry research, start figuring out the roadmap? But that first month should really all about being collecting that context and making sure that you're ready to go. So that when someone finally hands you the baton, great, you are now the decision maker. You can move forward with confidence and make sure that you're not dropping the ball. So that's kind of how I think about those first 30 days.
That's an amazing summary. Thank you so much. The next popular question is, once you understand what everyone is working on and their pain points, how do you go about asking different members to work on certain tasks? So I think task allocation within the engineering team and
yeah,
etc.
for sure. So I think one of the things that we need to remember, right, is that our colleagues are human beings. And so human beings kind of have they respond to incentives, right? And so the thing is, people are given particular tasks that like they're supposed to be responsible for, right? And like some things, like if they do them, they'll be rewarded for it. If they don't do it, they'll be punished for it, right? And so the thing is, what you want to do is first understand, how is this person thinking about what are my priorities, what are the things that I should be doing, etc. So that way, when you are saying, hey, I actually need you to start doing something else that's different, that wasn't part of what you were doing before, you need to be able to explain to them in their own terms, with their own mental framework, why your thing is important, right? And so what I mean by this is that you should not, like, the way that I said that is actually a little bit misphrased. I apologize. It's not about you like presenting something to them and like making them accept it. It's more about getting each other shared context, right? So you really want to understand, okay, well, I know that I came in, I'm new, right? But like, what are all the things that you're working on, right? Like, why is it prioritized that way? I just want to know what is it that you're working on, right? So that way I can work with you to make sure that when I'm sending you stuff, you're not drowning, right? Like I'm not just throwing random stuff your way. Like you understand like where it should fit as you're tackling the work, so that way I don't freak you out and like make you have to work late nights. Right? Like it's all about, I want to serve you better. So I really want to understand, what are the things that you're responsible for? What are the things that you're tackling? Why are you tackling them? So that way, when I propose, hey, can you also take on this thing? We can work out where it should fit in the priority list, right? And then on the flip side, you need to share with them, right? Like not, I'm a product manager, I make all the decisions, right? It's much more empathetic. It's much more kind of transparent of, hey, what I'm trying to do with the product right now is that we're trying to drive this, right? Like here is some initiative that we're tackling, and here's why the company thinks it's important, right? And so to do this initiative that the company thinks is important, there are these different tasks that we need to tackle. And given that you are, let's say, a front-end engineer, this particular task seems to be more front-end driven. I know that you're currently staffed on other teams driving other more critical front-end stuff. That's fine. But I have a customer who needs this thing by this date. And so if you can just let me know when you can get that thing done, then maybe I can work with you to meet that customer's date. And if we can't do it, I'll find someone else to do it, right? And so it's a lot about like, how do I share that context to them so that they're like, I am more than happy to do that thing, because it's going to make the company do well. It's going to make me look good, right? Like, how do you understand their motivations and their incentives to position your work? And you have to be transparent about your own incentives and motivations as well, so that way they see you as a human being and not as a dictator, right? And so a lot of it is about breaking down the barriers and being not just, colleagues, right? But like really being trusted partners to each other, right? So it's, hey, I know that you're really busy. I'm really sorry, but there's this really critical, urgent thing. And like, you don't pull that card every time, but they know that this time when you pull that card, you mean it, because all those previous times you let them get away with, okay, well, I'm going to deprioritize this, right? Because I have my own stuff to do, right? But this time you're like, this is actually legitimately really urgent, right? Like the CEO is looking at it, or like, I've got a customer who's threatening to terminate the contract, right? Like, I really need you to jump right in. They trust that you are taking care of their other priorities. They're like, great, I'm going to drop what I'm doing. I'm going to go do that thing, right? And then I know that you've got my back in the future, right? So a lot of it is about, how do I treat all of my teammates as partners and not as resources, right? So when we treat other people as resources, they feel dehumanized. They don't want to work with us. But when we yield ourselves to be transparent and rational people, when we give other people the explanation, they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I didn't know that you needed this by this date. I get it. Don't worry. I got you, right? And so kind of doing it that way, where kind of you both are in a dialogue of, how do we move their priorities forward and your priorities forward together, is a lot more productive than you trying to mandate them to do something by some time.
That's an amazing answer. And thanks, Maggie, for asking the question. We have 4 more minutes left in the call. Any questions that anyone wants to ask directly to Clement? Because I see a bunch of questions, but none of them are very popular. If you want to vote for one of the questions on Slido, you have time for one more question.
I can go ahead and ask the question. My name is Rujita Ghate, and I am an aspiring program manager / product manager. So in an attempt to identify the problem, what is your general way of navigating through ambiguity? Because I'm pretty sure that's going to be a very common scenario in product managers' lives. So.
Yeah, for sure. So I think one of the challenges of quote unquote dealing with ambiguity is that every situation is different, right? And so I don't necessarily have like one right framework, because there are different kinds of ambiguity, right? Like there is like landscape ambiguity of like, I don't know what my competitors are doing. There's customer side ambiguity of, I don't know what their priorities are. There's like problem space ambiguity of like, I don't know if the thing that I'm shipping is actually tackling the thing that I need, right? But I think one of the things that's helpful, right, is first lay out all the things that you do know and lay out all the things that you don't know, right? Just like get everything down on paper. And that is actually surprisingly something that can help you to structure your thoughts very quickly. Of, okay, great, I know all these things. Here are the things that I'm missing. Then out of the things that you're missing, prioritize them, right? So what is the 2 or 3 pieces of information that if I knew, I could go make that decision, right? And the thing is, we have to remember as product managers, we will never have perfect information, right? Like we will never be able to make any decision with 100% certainty. It's all about trading off the time cost versus the correctness cost, right? So if I can move pretty fast and I'm making like a 60% good decision, that's good enough, right? If I'm trying to make an irreversible decision that could permanently damage the company, I should probably take it slow, right? And so basically, how reversible is this decision? How concerning is it, right? Kind of how deep of an impact is it? And then based on that, we can figure out, okay, how much more information do I need? Is it worth me getting this information? So then now we know, okay, I know all these facts. I don't know all these things, right? And I need to know this set of information. Who can I go ask to get this information, right? So then now you have an action plan, right? I'm going to go ask these people to get this piece of information so that way I can go make the decision that I need, right? And so I think ambiguity is much more helpful to think about when you just try to break it down into 1, what do I know? 2, what do I not know? 3, of the things that I don't know, what are the things that I need to know? 4, who can I ask to get the information that I know? And then 5, just making sure that you get it. And if you can't get it, right, then like trying to understand why can you not get it, right? Can you actually move forward without this information, et cetera? If it's something where it's like, to get this information, we're going to need to do like a 1-year study with like 300 people or whatever, it's not worth it. We need to move, right? And so kind of that's how we think about breaking down the problem is, what do I know? What don't I know? What are the things that I need to know? Who can get me the answers, or how can I get these answers? And then from there, you can very quickly boil out a lot of the ambiguity and move forward a lot more confidently without sacrificing a lot of time to try to get the answers.
That was so important for me to know for one of the things that I'm facing at work as well. Thank you so much, Clement, for coming on the call today. For everyone else, if you've asked questions, and if you've asked questions, even if they were not answered, please reach out to Nikita Malia, and we'll be, thank you so much, Clement, for sharing free ebooks to APMC Club members, especially all our attendees today who asked questions. If you really want to get his book and you were not asking questions, we're happy to also discuss how can we make you ask more questions later and get your feedback and give you the book. And this is the end of the event. We really try to make sure we're on time and we're respecting everybody's time. If you want to be a part of some of the pilot programs that APM Club is working on, which would be very focused towards early career product managers and how to get you the right mentorship, the right resources, the right the right environment to make more PM friends and work on strategic projects with very less time commitment, as less as 30 minutes a week. We are here to help you, and we would love to have you as a part of our pilot program. Thank you so much for attending today, and thank you. Bye-bye. Take care.
Thanks so much. Have a good evening.